We are live. Hello. My name is Polly Hart, and today we're in for a special treat. Let me pour myself a glass of water here. I have recently, within the last 20 minutes, received my new magazine, which is a magazine that I made that just basically has all my stuff in it. When I say my stuff, I mean things that you would find that I've written over the last 25 years, all included in one magazine form. Now, I know what you're thinking. I thought you had more than that, Polly. Well, I do. It's just that I'm going to be presenting it in a format that is a periodical, and I think I have enough for about 80 episodes, 80 magazines, 80 periodicals. So here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Fresh from Amazon. MicroZine #1, Volume 1. And this is just a random picture I got of a girl from the 20s. And it's a 5x8 little 24-page here. That cover has a quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. That is part of the beauty of all literature. You discover that your longings are universal longings, that you're not lonely and isolated from anyone. You belong. And on the front cover, we have MicroZine Volume 1, short stories, humor, poetry, essays, literature, and comics. And then on the bottom, it says MicroZine Volume 1. So let's go ahead and crack this bad boy open, huh? On the front page, and you'll notice that this is a proof. It's not ready yet. So if I pull out a red pen in the midst of all this, please bear with me. Page 1, we've got some artwork by me. It's just front matter. Front matter is just basically MicroZine. This collection of prose and poetry is intended for entertainment only. This is a collection of works of fiction. All characters appearing in this work are fictitious. Any representation to a real person, living or dead, is purely coincidental. All content copyright by 2018 by Polly Hart. It is not available for reproduction, physical or digital, without express consent from the author. All rights reserved. Published by Polly Hart Art. Printed in Charleston, South Carolina, USA, when available. Jacket and cover art designed by Polly Hart. For more information about the author, please visit pollyhart.com, etc., etc. This book is available on Amazon.com, and I should put this periodical. So let's pull out the red pen and make our first correction. So I can find my trusty red pen. Here it is. This periodical. This red pen doesn't work. Let me find a red pen that works. This red pen. That is this. It's a pink pen. You twist it, pop it, snap it. Oh, that's cool. This periodical. This pen does not work as well. Let's pull out a Sharpie. That always works, unless it's dry. Aha. Periodical. Decal. Okay. These red pens are going in the trash can. Solves that problem. I've just been collecting pens my whole life. Okay. This periodical. Page 2. MicroZine Volume 1. I've got a picture of a little guy here. He's looking at you sideways. This is some of my artwork. You'll find my artwork all throughout the magazine. Page 3. Greetings, wonderful readers. MicroZine is an experimental journey through the world of story, prose, and poetry, written exclusively by Polly Hart. You will find, Written exclusively by Polly Hart, you will find yourself scratching your head at the complete lunacy of his mental adventures. When the lines blur between fact, fantasy, and frogs, You will probably ask yourself why in the world you've loaded the Bluetooth speakers into the washing machine. Time will go on. You'll learn from your mistakes, but then later that year, you will have remembered a funny thing that Polly Hart said to you while you read this book, and you'll laugh. Oh, you'll laugh until your cheeks hurt and your stomach cramps, and you even pee a little, ruining those nice bloomers that Chauncey bought you back in the summer of '96 when you went up that little hill to have a picnic. You see, in life, we are presented with a dichotomy of choices, and you've stumbled into a natural D20 roll of pure random noise. Not that I'm downplaying anything Polly Hart has done or anything I'm saying. You know, look, anyone can write a book that's horrible, but it takes talent to write a horrible book. And that's perspective. Like on a clear sunny day when you look right down into the sun for over 45 minutes and then drive down to the canal at full throttle with an open bottle of champagne dressed in full scuba gear because maybe Steve forgot all about the low tide and the high coral breaks. And tonight it seemed like a good idea not to tell the Coast Guard about those illegal Jamaicans that only wanted a safe place to live and a chance to live and earn it for themselves. What was Steve thinking? Maybe we can find out. Join us. Polly Hart. Yes, that's the introduction to the whole thing. And then on the bottom, the little cartoon guy, he's asking some questions. What happens when you get scared half to death twice? Can a blind person feel blue? How can a house burn down? Sorry, how can a house burn up when it burns down? Are you telling the truth when you lie in a bed? If your vacuum cleaner really sucks, is it a bad thing? How do you know when a Smurf suffocates? Next page. And I found a typo, so I'm going to get my trusty red pen here and circle that bad boy. Next page. We've got some nice artwork on page 4 and page 5. And it's basically just an artsy design. This is called Prelude to Another Way of Thinking. I received a letter the other day from my former wife. This would be my first wife. And that was a cat. Yes, I have cats, and I'm aware of their existence. If you see them, I'm not being invaded. Please do not call the police. I hear them. Maybe you might not hear them. I received a letter the other day. Oh, there they are. Oh, they're hugging. The black one is Gondor, and the gold one is Toasty. And they will wrestle with each other throughout my entire read. I received a letter the other day from my former wife asking if I could do her a favor and recount the events that led up to our nearly fatal wreck when we were married in the summer of 1996. I was sure that I could remember. I recall thinking deeply about this and set about writing the following work. Something's going on. The thing to know here is that during the set of... They're just going to do that the whole time. The thing to know here is that during the set of events, she was under an altered mental status that now, even during the most intensive meditation practices, cannot be recalled. This brief amnesia has left me the only survivor of this account with any real detail of the events. In order to come to peace with the events in her past, Danielle has asked me to recount these events. So I will try to practice my utmost to give my unbiased account of the event that transpired those many years ago. The following, to the best of my ability, is a true story. The day had come about like any other. Morning, noon, afternoon, in that order. Danielle and I had moved out of a temporary lodging that our friend Mitch had let us stay in. It was converted lodging that was formerly an older house and now resided in one of the town's worst areas. Down the street and across, there was an outlaw biker gang. On the next block, there was a tire dump. And after the house to our left, there was a rundown parking lot that many a drug deal transpired at. Later, but unknown to me at that time, a man named Ralph, whose mother was in the outlaw biker gang and who used to do several of the drug deals next door, would become my best friend, gave his life to Jesus, moved in next to me, turned his back on me, committed suicide, and blamed it all on me. But that is not this story. Danielle and I had moved into a house 5 blocks away. Not really a change in overall scenery, but in the ghettos of our city, a small change nonetheless. We were content with our new home, not in the best way of happiness, but contentment was enough. The renovated house we had just moved out of was a proposed women's shelter. We had taken residence there while they were in the midst of renovation. It was a nice gesture on behalf of the Lutheran Church, who owned the house we had just left, but being on our own was more to our liking anyhow. So it was just another day. And I was on my way to pick up Danielle up from work at the local Christian retail outlet. It had always been funny to me that Danielle worked there, being one of the most non-religious, deeply spiritual people I had ever known. Yet there she worked and labored and brought home a paycheck, while I was struggling out at a smaller church as their youth pastor, making very little. I only got paid for 20 hours, yet worked a full 40-hour week anyway. And being that, as I had said, sorry, I'm a very poor reader of words when it comes to doing this live. And being as we only had that 1984 Datsun two-door, it was fair to say that I drove her to and from work every day. So, average afternoon, average sky, average mid-fall month. Average light. Two non-average people enjoying their life together in their new jobs. She got into the car. I started up. We turned left. I had my seatbelt on. She did not. She was facing me, cocked in the seat, talking about her friends Regina and Thompson that worked at the store, and things were perfect. We were going 36 and a 35, and we had taken the average route home that we took every day. Things were average. Things were safe. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Passing a white work van on the left, we wham! We're spinning suddenly. And I'm now in pain, and I'm trying to find the brake, but I'm braking anyway, and now I'm still spinning inside my mind, and there's blood on the windshield, and Danielle is on the floor in my lap, and why is there blood all over my hands? There were 5,000 years that passed through my mind at that very instant. I floated to the sky with the sounds of the ocean in my ears and came back within seconds. I was all action. I remember thinking in sequence fragments only. Undo seatbelt, move left leg, move Danielle, pull Danielle out of car. The car might catch on fire. Why are we facing the wrong way? Check Danielle for vitals. There's blood everywhere. Look in her eyes. Ask if she's all right. Why is this guy trying to grab me? What are all those people screaming at? Get this guy off me. There's blood in her hair. There's blood on my hands. Danielle, are you all right? This guy is really grabbing me, and I'm going to hit this guy. Jump up on this guy. Sir, are you all right? Just calm down. He screams at me, and the sound of rushing water again. I fall to the ground and just then realize that I, too, am in extreme pain. My senses has not been telling me of what's going on in the body that I inhabit. There are people everywhere, and I just started crying. My wife that I loved, the whole reason that I had moved here, the one I had waited 24 years to give my virginity to, the whole being, my life, my everything had died. She was not moving. There was nothing there. And even as she groaned and told the others she was all right, somehow I still believed her to be dead. They would not let me get close enough. I was going to be seriously fighting this guy any second now that he would not let me near my wife, but he was a paramedic. And for a brief, lucid moment, one quick glance around, all was explained to me by my eyes. As we had been planning to pass the white work van on the left, suddenly going nearly at the speed limit, we had hit it at almost a 90-degree angle from the right on the passenger side by another smaller sedan who had ran the stop sign and had been planning to pop into the street right in front of the van. The only thing stopping her plan had been our car. When her car hit our car, it spun us in a spin that brought us to about 540-degree angle turn and landed us facing the opposite way into traffic in a turn lane in the middle of the street. The two lanes in traffic going our way had been stopped due to the woman's car blocking their way. The two lanes of traffic that had been going the opposite way had stopped almost due to the havoc and shock of seeing our car spinning seemingly into them. There was an ambulance and a fire truck on the scene, and Danielle was being fully attended around her by 3 people. One woman had an auburn sweater on, and she had been calmly speaking to Danielle, making sure she was not going into shock. The lucid moment was continuing. The man who I had wanted to fight so furiously was calmly speaking to me, making reassuring touches on the arm. He was not a paramedic after all, rather a big man in a white t-shirt and a red baseball cap. This might have led me to the former conclusion that he was a paramedic. I looked at him in the eye and said, "Lay off, dude." Probably because this was such a normal thing for me to say, he took it that I was in my right state. And for the most part, I was. And it seemed like 2 seconds since the crash and the turn of events, but in reality, it had been about 20 minutes for the whole ambulance to arrive and then later whisked away in. Danielle was on a stretcher. She was not dead. Here comes Condor. Come here. Wow. She was not dead, and we were looking at each other. I love you. I meant it. I said it. She told me that she already knew that. I thought that was a rather odd thing to say. Then I remember crying the joy that all the blood that had come from that tiny cut on her head was just a tiny cut after all. Her head had not fallen off. She was okay. She had not had a massive injury. She did not have a massive injury, but only a bump. Only. The way that she had been sitting sideways, though, this had led her to be propelled into the windshield when we had collided. And when we had spun, it had thrown her into my lap, messing up her hair and causing the blood to look like more than it really was. Funny, really, in retrospect. It wasn't that bad of an accident. While it did total our car, and I did end up, reliving a couple of life-altering experiences, it wasn't that bad. The worst thing about the wreck was the fact that I relived another woman dying. You see, my mother had passed away almost 1.5 years before that. And that was around the time that I met Danielle. I didn't know if I could go through all that, another person dying on me again, and I was grateful that she did not. At the hospital, her mother and stepfather were there. I had a minor injury from the steering wheel hitting my chest. Danielle claimed not to have remembered anything up until leaving work. I laughed and thought that she eventually would, and maybe this story will help. That was prelude to another way of thinking. And on the bottom of page 6, I have a little guy. There he is. He's a pirate mouse thing. Another one of my drawings. Page 7. A brief study. John, the rabid oscillating weasel, was finishing up his free bowl of chili, smacking all the while. JB had been lounging in booth, but reluctantly gave up his seat as I sidled in. The waitress sat down and proceeded to explain. Take out a sheet of paper and a pen, she said. Do you mean pen? I asked. Yeah, whatever, she said. I just think that you pronounced it incorrectly, I said. Do you want me to go on or not? Her face scowling. Sorry, I said. Pens and pens ready, she explained. All you need to do is define what words I will tell you. Like an explanation, I asked. Like a definition, she repeated. Gaw, JB retorted. Don't you ever pay attention? Okay, guys, she said. Ready? Yeah, we said. Okay, the first item is a cube. Now, this is actually a psychological test, and I'm breaking away from the text to tell you this. If you would like to, go ahead and pull out a sheet of paper and explain, just describe a cube, because this is actually quite a funny psychological test. The first item is a cube. You mean like, tell me more what it looks like. One sentence, no more than a paragraph. I described my cube. And if you want to go ahead and press pause while you describe your cube, you may. The cube. It's clear. One of its sides is actually a tiger, and it's being held by Martin Luther and Martin Luther King Jr.'s faces on the opposite side. Inside the cube is a pink cloud with a very lonely purple teardrop that drips down onto this very paper. Upon the farthest corner of the cube sits a very small herd of yaks. Done, I said. Finally, they all said. I looked around and discovered that they had been done quite some time ago. I think mine is too long. Looking bemused, she looked down on my paper, then at the others. JB said something like big and red. John said a single sentence alluding to the cube being very sleek and shimmery. The next object is a ladder. So at this time, if you would like to, go ahead and describe a ladder. One sentence. Doesn't have to be a paragraph. You press pause if you'd like to. Describe it on your paper. I looked down. Not as interesting as the cube, I said in my own head, but oh well. The ladder. The ladder is made of very rough cardboard and of very small ground-up bacon bits. It is covered in Celtic spirals and leading towards an orange bush. It is flat on the ground. That wasn't tough. I actually got done before JB had finished thinking about and was doing what appeared to be some oral surgery with the back of his pen. Something like realization dawned upon his rugged and good-looking face. He finished up his answer. Next is the horse, she said. A horse? John asked. Yes, a horse. And then a storm. So if you would like to, go ahead and press pause and describe a horse and then describe a storm. The horse. The most beautiful horse in the world was vandalized by ghetto graffiti artists. It was the most majestic and comely purple, but now it had a horrid slur of dingy browns. She looked terrible. She had been hurt very badly in the past and had a limp in her front left leg and had gone blind in her left eye. But a horse like this cannot be stopped, for she thinks that she is the strongest horse in the entire universe. The storm. The storm was coming from one of the feather clouds that was inside of the cube. It rained down over the large blue and yellow marshmallows. They fell at about the same speed as you would expect marshmallows to fall, very slowly, in your dreams. It was very odd. They were immediately devoured by little leprechauns before they ever hit the ground. John had been watching me write this last one and said that it would be a very great movie to see. I asked, in what respect? The new movie being Polly Hart. I looked at him, crossed my eyes, Malkovich, Malkovich, in my most loony voice. He smiled. Are you done? JB asked. Nope. She was laughing. 2 more, okay? Okay. The flowers. All right. And at this time, again, if you'd like to pause and write down the flowers. What are the flowers? My answer. At one time, there were exactly 1,543,297,208 flowers. They were encompassed by an entire range of mountains and fields and plains within my mini vision. But the horse had eaten all but 3 of them. The 3 left were small, thick, dark yellow type tulips, and they smelled of rotting strawberries. The 3 that were alive had been developed electro-anti-horse neutrino rays in self-defense so that they could survive. What was next, John said. The relationship. Again, at this time, if you'd like to pause this video and write out your relationship, just write out the relationship and describe it. Again, this is a psychological test, and it may behoove you to rewind this video and write these out before I give the answers. The relationship, she says. Of matter versus antimatter, I asked. Of Heather Locklear to former President Clinton, said John. No, she said, but I'd like to see the last one. Chuckles from John and myself. JD thought it wasn't that funny. As former Commander-in-Chief, Clinton should have yada, yada, yada. Yeah, shut up, I said. What in the world are you guys talking about anyway, John said. What do you mean? JB said. Guys, she had to break in, and thank God she did. The relationship of all of these things to one another. Oh, we all said it once. The relationship. This is what I wrote. As stated before, without prior knowledge of the relationship factor, the storm exists inside the cube. Upon this knowledge, the cube exists inside of the horse's mind, but as explained before, the horse is on the same plane as the flowers, and these, of course, are all upon the ladder, or within the second rung of the exact ladder, to be precise. This would mean that the horse and the flowers would have to be very, very tiny. Done. Really? She said. Yep, I said. Okay, she said. What's the point here? Just have some patience, cadet. JB booms. Oh, can it, jarhead? She said. Lots of laughing. All right, gentlemen, she pronounced. Here is what item stands for. Here's what each item stands for. Now, again, we're on page 8 of MicroZine, and this is a essay, perchance, that I wrote about my experience taking the psychological test. Now, if you would like to go through it again and describe these things in order. First of all, describe a cube. Secondly, describe a ladder. Then describe a horse. Then describe a storm. Then describe flowers. And sixthly, describe their relationship to one another. Go ahead and do that now if you have not. If you have already, I'm going to go ahead after I take some delicious water into my lungs. Wait, that would be bad. Into my throat pipe. Whatever. And describe them to you. You ready? The cube is yourself. The ladder is your friends. The horse is your lover. The storm are your problems. The flowers are your children. And the relationship, of course, it's one to the other, she said, reading my mind. She gave us our ticket and walked away, her hair an auburn sunset. And that is on page 7, 8, and 9, called A Brief Study. And it's actually a pretty interesting study. Those are my cats. I've got a picture of some sort of a platypus on page 7, and some sort of a design there. I don't know what it is. And I've got some what look like to be Furbies on page 9. All right, here we are. Issue 1, episode 1. Page 9. It's a short story called Day Faith. I wrote this a long time ago. Yeah, I think I've edited it since then. It's very short. It's only a page. So here we go. Oh, I'll show you the picture. No, I won't. I'll wait for that. Okay, so far we've had our introduction, hello, an essay about a car wreck, and some riddles, and now we've had another essay about a psychological test that I took. So now we're into our first short story. Here we go, Day Faith. At the end of the day, I was walking home. I found a man lying on the ground who had been beaten. His shirt was torn, his face bloody and crying. He was pleading with me with those big watery eyes, but I was running a little late for my favorite show. I came to my house. The neighbor's cat had been sick and left a lovely present for me on my doorstep. I was almost avoiding stepping in it, but who cares? I walked in, threw my keys on the counter. The wall phone beeped. I kicked my shoes into the corner. Wasn't going to wear them again anyway. It was Denise. She had been in Detroit for the last couple of days on business. She decided to give me a ring before, because she felt obligated. Her call was meaningless. I half listened to her as she rambled on against the politics of major car corporations. I just hung up the phone when I couldn't take it anymore. Immediately she called back, but I just kind of watched the phone as it rang, trying to imagine her frustration on the other end of the line. Eventually, she must have gotten tired of the whole ordeal because the phone quit ringing. I watched it for a good 2 minutes before I eventually decided just to cut the cord. Snip. Try to call me now. I decided it was time to eat. Going to the freezer, I realized that I had bought nothing in the past month that even closely resembled sustenance. I ate anyway. Frozen biscuits usually tasted better cooked. I didn't mind. Popped into my chair just in time to catch the credits of my show. Damn Denise. Damn her to hell. Oh well. I stood up and kicked the TV in. Another day. Deciding whether to sleep in my suit or pajamas took the better part of the next hour. Eventually, I decided that the suit just didn't matter anymore. I stripped it off in the living room and pushed it into the corner. Much better. I studied myself in the bathroom mirror, the same tired shoulders, the same haggard face, the same graying hair. I staggered to the bathroom. I coughed up blood and phlegm into my hand and wiped it on the wall before I collapsed into the bed with the grace of a corpse. I lay there. All my life seemed to be wrapped up in today. I had gone to the doctor again. He told me that my condition has not improved. In fact, it had grown much worse. Much worse. If I sleep, I die. I haven't slept in 15 years. I lay in bed and do not sleep. There are exactly 22,337 dots on my ceiling. I finished counting them again last night. I'm done counting my dots. I'm done counting on my luck. Good night. I'm going to sleep. That was a very, very early short story that I wrote. I actually need to touch it up a little bit. And then I have a cartoon. Can you find the 6 differences? So I have 2 panes here. And you really can't see that at all. So tragic. But anyway, there are 6 differences in those 2 pictures. I don't know if you can tell. One of them is on the clock. This clock has an extra little doohickey. This one doesn't. Yeah, anyway. Okay, and then I have some reflections. Reflections is a book that I wrote, 365 type cool things to think about. I was going to do a little calendar, 1-a-day calendar, but just going to put them in here. There's 7 here, so I can make 52 episodes and be okay. So I already have 365, right? Hey. Okay, reflections. Only the presence of a larger threat can stop the cats from fighting. Reflections. A fickle employer never yields a just paycheck. Reflections. Television is a perfect medium if waste is your pastime. Reflections. Never stir up a bee's nest without a direct plan of escape. Reflections. The only time to change is now. Reflections. Round 2 is rarely a neutral statement. Reflections. Sex is a weapon. There you go. So there's some reflections for you. Hi, Toasty. Do you want to say hi to the audience? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, buddy. He's been a little bit weird the last couple of days. Comically, he got one of those t-shirt bags that you get at Walmart with the ring to hold it, stuck around his neck, and then ran around the house like a crazy man. Crazy cat in this case. And eventually wound up peeing all over the floor and running under the dishwasher and not coming out for like an hour. So we eventually just had to coax him out. And then we had to give him a bath, and then Gondor and he didn't get along for like 2 days. And today's the first real day that they've actually gotten along again. So Gondor's a bit blind, and he's a rescue cat, the black one, without a tail. Some like dog ate his tail. That's a long story. So here we have, next it's time for poetry. And I've got just a random picture of a guy stomping on some cities on the bottom of poetry. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 poems. And I've written 2,500 poems, which is probably too much for any one man to write. Who knows? Whoa, that was Gondor, little black dude. This is called Nothing. Pretense meant nothing to me when I looked into her eyes, gazing into coolness, matching spy for spy. Let me just start again. That was horrible. Nothing. Pretense meant nothing to me when I gazed into her eyes, gazing into coolness, matching spy for spy. She read me like a Bible, chapter, book, and verse, all the words dried on my tongue, all the lines rehearsed. Pretense meant nothing to me as I looked into her eyes. All I could do was think of love, and moments passed us by. Aw. Here's one called I'm 53, and you can tell that it's a little bit dated. Because it used to be about Vietnam. And I guess it would be like 73 today. I'm 53 and scared, but I changed it to the war instead of Vietnam. I'm 53 and scared, remembering the war. I know that's where they took me, to the concentration camp. My birthday is on Tuesday, just like it was back then. I look back and I remember the enemy didn't care. I was 23 and scared, remembering back home. My father was the preacher of a small town Baptist church. He told me life was precious. He said, hang on to God. He preached that when things got bad, God would take your hand. I'm 53 and scared, but God still lives in me. And that's what saved my soul when I was 23. Here's the next page with 2 poems on it and a little guy upside down. And he's saying, that's odd, because that is kind of odd. The next page has, I don't know what that is, a tree and a line. Bus stop. Forsaken, not forgotten, he stood, she stood, they stood together while it rained. And all their thoughts were as one, were as two, were together while it rained. Their love intertwined, their souls, their hearts, their minds, and the rain came and came and came. Lights that came by, shone on, glowed on, splashed on, and as they waited there at the bus stop. And all the while they waited, they prayed, they hoped that the bus would be on time, but they hated getting wet, so they decided to share an umbrella with each other at the bus stop until the bus came. This one is called Army Girl in Her Closet. Where are the valleys filled with flowers? Where are the mountains with snow? Where are the meadows? Where are the children? I sure wish I'd like to know. Where is the laughter? Where is the singing? Where are the people who care? Where is the villa with bells that are ringing? I would like to go. I wish to be where happiness is. I want us to be fine. I wonder why good people die. I'm sure that I don't know. Why are you crying? Why are you hurting? Talk with me till the end. Please don't be lonely. Please don't be dying. Please don't be hurted. Please don't be trying. I want to go where the children are playing. Take me there. Take me there. Take me there, my friend. This next one is called Inch by Inch. For he who knows to walk on water need never drown. For she who knows how to fly need never falter. And for they who know how to trust need never fear. Blind faith it was and always seemed to be. But true faith is always this blind, it seems, you and me and Jesus complete, as one sweeps the other off each other's feet. There were two roads, the distances untold, both climbing to mountain paths so old, each bringing its traveler withered and bruised, pilgrims of promise, in a barren land used. So inch by slow inch they walked their course, ever slowly to the common source, and knowing it not, their paths grew to one, and from that day forth their lives together spun. For he who knows to walk on need never falter, for she who knows how to fly need never drown, and for they who know how to trust need never fear. Blind faith it was and always seemed to be, but true faith is always this blind, it seems, me and you and Jesus complete, as one sweeps the other off each other's feet. It's asking for the taking. So now we are on page 14. We've had some poems, we've had a short story, we've had a couple of essays. I've got just a couple of watermark pictures there. There's a guy with the eye patch going, oh no. And this is a short story called Saf and the Kitten. This page, this short story is actually featured, as most of them are, in my my short story collection called Sometimes I Write Tiny Stories. This one is actually one of my stranger ones, and I think I'm also going to include it in a short story collection for children. Long ago, Saf had become known as the Emperor without words. And that was just how the subjects treated him. The subjects would come one by one. It was always the mice first, due to their impertinence, and bow and grovel at his feet, presenting their gifts one by one in tears of sorrow. It was then that Saf would wake up screaming, as he always did. It was a farce, for his only reality was the Jade Dungeon and the Minotaur that kept him there. The Minotaur's name was Jake, and it was funny. He lived in the Jade Dungeon as well. He always wanted to go out and see the mountains, but no one would ever give him any heed. And he only spoke Kraken. You never saw the Kraken anymore. Saf had the same dream about the kittens every night. He was quite convinced that it really was a dream about kittens, but the mice were always there first, ruining everything with their terrific demands. More piers into the sea, more bridges over the ant swamps, more this, more that. And they always left their disgusting gift in the tiny little pink vials. It was the tears of the Ever Queen, long dead and forgotten. How they had gotten those tears were beyond him, and he probably should have asked. But in a dream, you never really know how things will turn out. Invariably, he would ask one of them, and they would tell him, she died in her loving embrace, and she let us eat her as she passed. Saf knew that it was all lies, but they told him with the same story over and over, and he became prone to believe it after a while. So night after night, he would dream the ridiculous dream, and morning after morning, the Minotaur would be there, banging on his cage, telling him to shut up. Breakfast would come, usually in the form of crunch rocks, but there was never anything to drink. Once he had no breakfast, and once there was waffles. The waffles only happened once, and so every time he had a crunch rock, he imagined delicious waffles with nice warm syrup. Seriously, even if the waffles they had served him had not really been warm or delicious at all, and probably shouldn't even have become, known to be waffles to begin with, he still dreamed of waffles. The Minotaur would begin then to read poetry to him. It was long and drawn out, but it pleased the Minotaur very much, and since there was nothing better to do, he let the Minotaur drone away. On and on in his unique and strange language of the sea, he would read poetry to Saf from his overly large orange book. He had tried to teach the Minotaur to speak like him, but often for his reward there would only be a sharp prick with the trident. Soon Saf decided the best thing to do was just to nod and act as if the Minotaur's poetry was very important and rhymed very well. The cage hung from a large chain high into the sky. He would have called it a ceiling, but since he couldn't see the very top of it, there was no use. So he called it the sky. The cage was round and approximately 1/2 meter in diameter. It was very tall, however, and Saf could stand whenever he wanted and did so often. When sitting, he would dangle his 4 legs out of the sides of the cage and hum quietly to himself. One day, as he was humming along, the Minotaur came around making his daily checks. He stopped and listened to Saf. Saf, of course, lost in song, his eyes closed, had no idea he was there. Saf had never hummed with the Minotaur near before, for he feared the monster might not like his tune, so he was very stealthy about it. But this day, as I have said, his eyes were closed and there was nothing to do about it but hum and hum. When you don't know what someone else is watching, all you can do is hum, really. What startled Saf more than anything was the fact the Minotaur started humming along with him. And why not? The Minotaur was a huge fan of music. He even had an old Donna Summer record that he would play at night, up in his spire, when all the prisoners were either asleep or dead. Of course, he only had 2 records, the other one being Donnie and Marie Osmond, but he couldn't stand that one and had since smashed it to pieces. Saf, completely taken aback, the Minotaur had been listening, stopped. The Minotaur poked him with his trident, and so Saf began humming again. Moments turned into days, which probably turned into weeks, and when you know it, before long, the Minotaur had learned all the songs that Saf could teach him. This made the Minotaur angry, who had quickly decided that all he really wanted to do was become a musician and perhaps, again, see the mountains. This had made him feel good inside and filled up with a sense of purpose, even more than the poetry ever did. Jake would be in the lights in the theaters, and everyone would come out to see him and hum his favorite tunes. He even stopped writing new poetry. Maybe he would write poetry one day again, but he had created songs instead. Maybe he could make songs from his old poetry, from his big orange book. He had big plans. Saf, if he had known about the Minotaur's aspirations, would have perhaps hesitantly told them that it was a terrible idea, and he was a poor student of music and couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. But Saf did not speak Kraken, and so little was done. Well, that's all there is to tell. For all we know, Jake and Saf still hum away to this very day. There really weren't any kittens in this story. Sorry. Saf never got over the fact that the dream had always happened in the same way. Jake kept waking him up earlier and earlier to be hummed to. Saf never got to the part of the dream where the kittens appeared. He knew they would eventually, just never happen. Which makes me sad. I wanted to tell you about the kittens. And maybe I even wanted to tell you how Saf got the Minotaur and taught him lyrics in Kraken. And maybe he even taught him Grelsh, because that's what Saf spoke, of course. And by that, maybe he convinced the Minotaur that he had a terrible job and he should release all the prisoners at once. The Minotaur would have agreed and they would have all danced away into the sunset. But sadly, that's not what happened. And I'm incredibly sorry. There's not a better ending to the story. That's it, really, literally. That was the end. So that's a short story for you. That has a 4th wall break and just kind of goes on and makes you kind of wonder why I would write short stories like that. But I did. So I have another little camera op here. This is my interpretation of my friend John. Back when he had a goatee. Incredible likeness. You'd have to really see him. La ola es mia. Ola means wave. And it can also mean like an ocean wave. Whoosh. That's what this means. Once upon a great while, oh, and I'm on page 16, by the way. Once upon a great while, we encounter waves in our life that push us towards out of our ordinary selves and force us into the extreme. This is an essay, by the way. These waves are seldom gentle and often quite dangerous. Sometimes these waves are unaccepting of us, and more often or not, they are prejudiced towards us. These waves are the waves we must ride if we want to succeed. There is one such wave that I want to talk about here. I have fallen in love. Granted, I've fallen in love before, but then it was more of a reasonable thing. This is unreasonable love. There's no rhyme or logic to this infatuation, but nevertheless, it grows in me like an unyielding fungus, changing me and morphing me into another creature of fuzz and flora. I have become the mold. I have become this creature, and I like it. There's a deepening within a man that is untouched by 99% of the world, and sometimes can lie so dark and hidden that it will never be revealed except for the wild chance that it is thrust into your face. By chance, it has been thrust into mine. I have been touched in a hidden spot that I'm almost embarrassed to speak of. Spot that is so dark and has been so dark for quite some time, I'm afraid of it. Quite often enough, I am faced with choices. So is everyone. But for a man, there are only 2 choices in every circumstance involving women. The choice you are given and the choice you must settle for. Once in a blue moon, these 2 choices coincide. And there is only one thing you do. Go for it. That's what I plan to do. I plan to go for it. I have met my wave, and it is mine. I do not care what those around me think. I do not care what they say. I don't give a rip about the circumstances involving our romantic entanglement. I want this chance in life, and I will take it. I will not settle for a second best option, and I don't care about who tries to stop me in the way that I feel. Save God Almighty above, I will continue on and achieve my destiny. La ola es mía. I didn't realize that I've had so much about love in here. All right, I'm on page 17, and I've got a little comic at the very top. And I know you can't read that. She says, define good taste. And he kind of looks around and says, I think you're the bee's knees. Aww. So I've written about my first wife. Now I'll write about my second wife. This is called An Essay on the Hardship of Love. There she was, sprawl-legged and lounging on my brown chair in my living room, taking up my time with those mischievous eyes. What did she want? Why was she here? And why did I find myself over the next few months falling deeply and more madly in love with her? Could it have been the way I would see her play with her children? The way she adjusted, fidgeted, combed, flipped, and plainly used her hair as a weapon of attraction against men? Perhaps it was her readiness to serve that became the main appraisal point in my estimation of her worth in my life. Most of all, yes, most of all, I believed that we were meant for each other. Sorry, while I take a moment and laugh. There were indeed moments of those rare couples on earth that, despite all obstacles and hindrances, actually found their true love, their destiny, yes, their soulmate. I mean, it's good writing. I'll give it that. It's neat. It's from the heart. But man, in retrospect, I just look back. My first two wives, they were users. I'm a great guy. I'm a good catch. But my wife now, Jennifer, caught me. And sorry, y'all, I'm taken. You know, but my first two wives, I think they loved me for what I could be, not for really who I was. So they tried to change me. Oh. Yes, there she was, and I fell. Okay, let me back up a bit. When I say that I fell in love, I don't mean that I had been casually strolling down life's lane of bliss and joy, hands in pockets, eyes darting across a perfectly blue sky, ears attuned to the chirp, chirp, chirping of blue jays, and whoops, there was a proverbial manhole cover left down and I fell. No, not that at all. What I mean to say when I say I fell in love was that if I had been Indiana Jones running through the opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark, booby traps and deadly pitfalls avoided, now I come crashing out of the dank place like a bat out of hell and find myself alive and unscathed, terribly dusty in the glimmering sunlight. I have escaped it all, and I think to myself that this is only then that I noticed that a large forest of punji sticks pointed at me and the 60 beady eyes of angry natives. I fell in love, and it was a whole new set of rules. Make no mistake, dearest reader, or in this case, dearest listener, I have been in love before. I loved my first woman in college. I loved another shortly thereafter, and I married her. Yes. Oh, there's a policeman. Just went by. Yes, this is no new subject to me, the whole attraction between man and woman thing. However, up until this time, my marks have been only satisfactory. And it has only been recently that I found myself wanting to re-enroll in the school of love and try again for better marks. Here I am, pained and healed, cut but mended, wounded yet remedied, ailed but cured, back from the dead once again like Frankenstein's monster, and like a forlorn instrument in some World War II era forgotten long ago, on some North African battlefield post, I had the same look of horror in my eyes, that do or die syndrome. I see the enemy, or in this case, the subject of desire, excuse me, and it mortifies me. No, terrifies me. That very, very, very soon I will most assuredly arrive upon some decision, life or death, that will affect both of our lives forever. So I am in love. No denying that. But what is it about this love that makes other loves seem foolish and immature? Why does it seem so refreshing to me to be around her? Why is it that every breath I take when she's in the room is scented with incense and nectar? I really don't have any idea why. Oh, sure, I guess I could come and take some wild stab and say, aha, this is what I am inebriated with. Or this is the reason for my heart to act the way it does. But in reality, who knows? Who can really tell? Not I, for one. And I don't know if ever she could tell me what is really going on. You know what, though? I won't let this hinder me from finding out. I have no idea, but I will sail into it unhindered. Yet I will trust God. He who guided me through the strife and hatred of my first love. Wasn't it he who cured me of my emotional pains? Wasn't it he who cured me of my codependencies? He who soothed my wounds and kissed me back to life? Yes, it was God. And he made me man enough to trust again. Man enough to believe again. Man enough to be a man enough for the woman of my dreams, the woman of my destiny. Again, didn't God give me a plan for her in the Bible? Of course he did. Oh, the foolishness of this writer. Well, I didn't happen to read just Proverbs 31 just the other day. Sorry. Well, I didn't happen to just read Proverbs 31 the other day. You know, I can honestly say that Solomon or Lemuel, whoever the heck it was that wrote that, had such a hard time coming up with this little list of prerequisites to guide their heart by. A goodly and God-fearing woman was sure enough hard to find, nigh impossible. With God's help, it was possible for me. And now, even though I see all the attributes from this chapter coming to fruition in the woman I've fallen in love with, maybe not all, I do not believe that she sees herself in this context, in this beautiful piece of scripture. Doesn't she know how cool she is? Or perhaps she tries so hard it never really seems like enough to her. That she doesn't want, and she doesn't see, and she doesn't try. I wonder if it's a humility thing, really. Is this view of her own reality slanted to not realize her own greatness? Oh, the pain of those long years in service of a spiteful spouse. How it would relieve me if I would be the one to be there to wipe the tears away from her heart. This is hard to read. I got to be honest. This woman hurt me so badly. And this is a poem from when I just met her, having been hurt from my first marriage. Whew. How much has she been there through the sake of a normal life? Has she been better? Have the scars made her stronger? Was it worth it to begin with? Perhaps pain is a bit awkward in that regard. Pain makes you do things you would not do otherwise. Pain just makes you more of who you are. Whether you're a wuss or a warmonger, pain reveals it. That is why they say that the wounded warrior on the battlefield is the most dangerous. He has little to lose. He's tasted pain and found it real. The fear of the unknown is gone, and all that is left is the knowledge that he can perform now what he couldn't do moments before. Pain is strongest in love. Perhaps this is why so many poets write about it. Love stories are always to be remembered, even if they end tragically. And if I had become the man that I am today without the activation of pain, then I wouldn't be so happy. If I'm the man today, if I had become the man today I am with the activation of pain, then I had become a happier man. Because if I never felt pain, I would never have known truth. Without pain, I would not learn to learn from my loss. Would not have learned to learn from my loss. And would not have been the person that I am today. I've come back from the pain and found my true purpose. I would rather have nothing else fulfill my desires, but that which fulfills it to the uttermost. Pain is strong. The hardness and the hardship of love is full of it. I have been hurt. I have been used and abused, sold off, written off my id, ego, soul, heart, shamefully treated by both God and man. But not God, just man. Did I enjoy it? Did I like it? No. Did I profit from it? Yes. And I have profited well. Profited and grown tall. The hardship of love. Definitely something I write about seldomly, but think about quite often. Is love hard? Does it get any easier? Is difficulty in love something normal? Does it get easier? That what it seems like now takes forever? Who knows? Not me. All I know is that my whole life, my entire existence is wrapped up in the heavenly arms of Jesus Christ. He will catch me when I fall. Yes, falling even into the arms of love. He is there. He's faithful. Faithful to heal the brokenness of my soul. Faithful to heal the pain and the grief. To restore and bring me back from hell into a newness from the hardship of love. Wow. So that was the last essay, and I'm going to show you the pictures from that. It's basically essay on the hardship of love. The first page there was no watermarks or anything. The second and third page had just a kind of a bland watermark behind it. Didn't really mean anything. Really couldn't tell what it was, but it was two hands holding each other. There's a left hand and a right hand. And that was the end. So it ends on this page 19 here. Page 20, there's just a couple of neat little pieces of art. This is a reprint from a short story called From Oessa to Epina. And there are two towns, I guess, in Africa, in the Central African Congo Republic. CAR, Central African Republic. There's a design that I made, and I put it on the bottom of the last page there, page 24. So at page 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 are part of a novella, and it's parts 1 and 2, and there are 5 parts, so chapters 1 and 2 to the novella, and I'm going to leave that to you to read for yourself. It is actually available in Sometimes I Write Tiny Stories, my short story collection that I made. You have been hearing from MicroZine Volume 1. We read short stories, humor, poetry, essays, literature, and comics. And again, just a quick recap. There was an introduction on page 3. We had an essay, Prelude to Another Way of Thinking, which is about a car wreck for my first wife. Then we had a brief study, which was a psychological test that I took, that maybe you took as well. Then we had Day Faith, which is a short story about a man who cannot sleep. And then we had Reflections, which were 7 things that are smart things to know, I guess, things to live by. Then we had 5 poems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we had Saf and the Kitten, which is a short story about Saf and the kitten. Great story, right? Then we had La Ola Es Mia. Another couple of little comics there. And then an essay on the hardship of love about my second wife, when I met her and how I thought she was so wonderful. And the very last, there is a part of a novel. And that is actually really cool. A really cool novel. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this novel. I've got paint all over my fingers. And that's the end of the first magazine. So let me tell you a little bit about the short story or the novella From Oessa to Epina. There are 2 main characters. Tug, who is a character that I created for my first full-length novel, By the Gates of the Garden of Eden, and Hezi. Full name is Hezekiah, but he goes by Hezi. And these 2 characters are actually in my full-length novel, and this is the first novella after that novel, and it kind of shows a little bit what happens to them afterwards. You know, they're involved with a job in Africa. They are in the Central African Republic, and they go the CAR, the country, and they're walking and they're doing a land survey for the government. And they have 3 men with them who they've hired to take photos and do survey because of the railroad that's going to go through there. They're being paid. And they come upon what you would call a crypto creature, a cryptid. And if you know anything about the cryptids from the middle of Congo and Africa, Michael Crichton wrote a good book about it called Congo, but it was about albino apes that are not lowland gorillas or forest gorillas or silverback gorillas, but there was a new type of gorilla that it was a pretty cool techno thriller. Michael Crichton wrote. This is not them. This is something else entirely. So it is available. And so it's the first novel that I wrote that had any tie-in to the first novel that I wrote. So it's pretty special to me. And I've got 3 other novellas that I've written that I'm going to be putting in here in these. So and I think another couple of novels, if I just chop them all up, you're going to get all the novels. So you don't have to buy the novels. You can buy this, and you can get all sorts of fun poetry and essays. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you. This is episode 1. I'm going to do some corrections, and then I'm going to submit it again to my publisher. And yeah, I think it'll be a fun read. Volume 1 coming out soon. So have a good night, guys. Thank you for joining me so much. And see you later. Bye.